Scary headlines coming in from the Midwest. We'll focus again on that virus that's spreading and sending hundreds of kids to the emergency room and some of them to intensive care because of breathing problems related to this virus that's spreading through the Midwest. We got cool fronts on the way, migratory patterns, winter Texans, bringing all that stuff down here pretty soon. All right, so let's talk to healthcare reform expert Dr. Anthony Lyssy. Dr. Lyssy, what can you tell us about this new virus that's spreading through the Midwest?
Yeah, well, let me give you a little bit of rundown. Enterovirus D68 is what the actual virus is called. Enteroviruses are actually fairly common. They're one of the most implicated viruses in the common cold. People that have the typical runny nose, the cough, the congestion, those are actually caused by enterovirus. What we're finding with this D68 strain of the virus is it's a little bit more virulent or a little bit more infectious. It can trigger asthma attacks a little bit easier in kids with asthma or other lung issues. It's causing some wheezing, and it's actually not going away on its own in the timely fashion like the typical cold does, and it's requiring some kids to have to be put in the hospital for what we call supportive care, meaning they give them some oxygen, nebulizer treatments, IV hydration to make sure they're staying as well as they can. And in some cases, actually, children will have to be placed on ventilatory support with a ventilator.
Okay. Dr. Anthony Lyssy joining us on 710 KURV.
Dr. Lyssy, Tim Sullivan here. So what's making this particular enterovirus so bad, and why is it targeting kids mostly?
Yeah, that's a great question. And right now, we're not really sure of exactly what it is about the virus that's making it more infectious. But this virus has actually been around for a while. It was first identified in California in the 60s, and, there was very rare instances of it from, 2009 to 2013. There were only about 80 cases around. Doctors weren't typically testing for this, but with the history of it and finding these new clusters of kids that are having these colds that are a little bit more invasive, a little bit more infectious, docs have begun testing for it in certain pockets, such as Kansas City and Chicago, and they're actually finding it in these kids that are having to be hospitalized.
And so why in that particular area of the country as well?
Yeah, it's, again, hard to say. It could be some of the early cold fronts that are making people a little bit more susceptible to picking these things up.
So your recommendation now would be for every school teacher and daycare center and even over at Chuck E. Cheese to go clean everything up as often as you can as far as what the kids are touching to make sure they're not spreading this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As this spreads, one of the biggest things we have to talk about is how to take precautions to avoid this virus, and that's really common sense type stuff: washing your hands, avoiding sharing things, don't share food and drink, making sure surfaces are clean with disinfectant. And there's really no treatment for this. As a virus, antibiotics won't work against it.
Yeah.
There's no antiviral medication. Again, it's just supportive care. So most of the time, kiddos may get this and get over it on their own. However, it's the real fragile children, the asthmatics, the immunocompromised kids that are affected.
They play major defense when it comes to those kids. Thank you, Doctor.
The preventive aspects are fairly easy.
Yeah, that's 10-4. That's Dr. Anthony Lyssy joining us on 710 KURV. Keep the surfaces clean and keep the hands clean for the kids.